I'm going to read Aidan Abet Teacher's Pet Tune. The strange tale of Aidan Abet begins on the morning of the 5th of September. It was the first day of the new school term, and Aidan was not looking forward to it for two reasons. Reason one, the unrelated Robinsons. Robert Robinson and Robin Robinson were unrelated but never seen apart, so everyone called them the unrelated Robinsons. And the unrelated Robinsons greeted Aidan Abet in the same way every day. Aidan Abet, teacher's pet, peed his pants and now they're wet. Every single day. The unrelated Robinsons didn't like Aidan. Aidan didn't like the unrelated Robinsons. In Aidan's opinion, these boys were animals, and Aidan didn't like animals either. Not at first, anyway. Reason 2, Mr. Goodacre. Mr. Goodacre was not a good teacher by any stretch of the imagination. He always looked like he was trying to remember where he'd left his car keys, or as if he'd just smelled a fart. He was also lazy, and so Aidan employed the assistant's approach with him. It went something like this. Mr. Goodacre, Aidan would say, would you like me to take the register? Or, Mr. Goodacre, would you like me to collect in everyone's homework? Or, Mr. Goodacre, would you like me to be a dinner monitor so you can have a rest? Aidan knew that if he did Mr. Goodacre's work for him, then Mr. Goodacre would stop the unrelated Robinsons from picking on Aidan. Of course, this meant everyone else in the class thought that Aidan was a teacher's pet. The trouble was, Mr. Goodacre had decided to retire at the end of the summer term. This was bad news for Aidan. Without Mr. Goodacre to watch over him, the unrelated Robinsons would pick on Aidan all the time. Aidan's only chance was to win over his new teacher as soon as possible and get the new teacher to put the unrelated Robinsons back in their place. So, back to the morning of the 5th of September. Aidan Abet, teacher's pet, peed his pants and now they're wet. As usual, those were the first words Aidan heard when he walked into the classroom on the first day of the new school term. He ignored the unrelated Robinsons and the giggling from his classmates. He sat down at his desk right at the front and waited for the new teacher. He would do whatever it took to win them over. He'd be keen, but not too keen. He'd flatter them, but not fawn over them. He'd be helpful, but not smother them. Teachers were a predictable lot. Aidan had a plan in place for whatever the school threw at him. He was ready for anything, but he wasn't ready for Miss Vowel. Miss Vowel's application letter. Dear Mr. Headworthy, I'm writing to apply for the post of Year 6 teacher at Teacup Lane Primary School. I have more than 5 years' experience as a teacher. At present I am looking for a big challenge, and I believe Teacup Lane would fit the bill. I am a team player who is willing to pitch in whenever I am needed. I'm well aware one must be able to wear many hats in this job, and I will take this role seriously. After all, the children's futures are at stake. I hope to hear from you soon. Yours sincerely, Miss Annabel Vowel. Chapter 2. Miss Vowel walked in the door without so much as a glance at the children. She was short and lean with a sharp bob of brown hair. She wore a pair of oval glasses with thick blue rims and a plain brown suit. She looked like any other teacher. But what followed her through the door made everyone in the class sit up. Animals. The school caretaker wheeled 2 large trolleys into the classroom, crammed with cages, hutches and glass tanks. All were filled with animals. Aidan counted a rabbit, a hamster, 2 gerbils, a turtle, 3 frogs, newts and snails, and a green snake as long as your arm curled around a branch in a glass box. By the time the caretaker had set the caged creatures all in place around the edges of the room, there were more animals than children. Miss Vowel waited for the caretaker to leave. At long last she looked at the children. I am Miss Vowel. These are my animals, she said. Animals remind us that the world has an order to it. Treat them like you treat your fellow classmates, only better. Animals, Aidan thought with a shudder. Why did it have to be animals? Aidan didn't like animals for the same reason he didn't like his Auntie Pauline. They were strange, smelly and stupid. What's more, there was no way to flatter animals, so Aidan had no idea how to handle them. Aidan sighed. Forget about the animals, focus on the teaching, he told himself. He put his hand in the air. Miss Vowel, he said, would you like me to take the register? Mr. Goodacre always got me to take the register. Aidan ignored the groan from his classmates. Don't look back, he thought. He pushed his arm a little higher. Miss Vowel, he said again. I heard you, Miss Vowel said, without looking up. Abet? Oh, Aidan said, and he put his hand down. He heard the unrelated Robinson snigger. Abet? Miss Vowel said again. Abet? Yes, miss, Aidan replied. So you are present, Miss Vowel said, and she eyeballed him. Then answer to your name when I say it. That's the point of the register, is it not? Oh, I thought... Sorry, Aidan said. I didn't know you were... Miss Vowel went on with a tut. Bradman, Chan, Dumal, she read out. Aidan heard the unrelated Robinsons laugh again, louder this time. If he didn't win over Miss Vowel fast, the unrelated Robinsons would make his life a misery forever. He had to get a move on. It was time to bring out the big guns. Chapter 3, The Big Guns. By lunchtime, Aidan had given it everything. He'd got to win over Miss Vowel. Number 1, the flattery strategy. Miss Vowel, if I had to wear glasses, I'd want ones just like yours. They make you look so smart. Number 2, the assistant's approach. Miss Vowel, do you want me to collect in everyone's homework? Number 3, the comparison strategy. Miss Vowel, you smell so much nicer than Mrs. Underarm. But Miss Vowel wasn't in the least bit interested. If anything, every new effort Aidan's made seemed to annoy her even more. She didn't even mind the other kids winding him up. The unrelated Robinsons sang their teacher's pet song 3 times that morning, each time louder than the last. Miss Vowel still didn't bat an eyelid. Aidan's heart sank. The whole class was laughing at him. Even Aisha Moon, who sat next to Aidan, was nice to everyone, let out an amused snort. And with every laugh, Aidan felt the world closing in on him, like the musty, sour smell of Miss Vowel's animals. The animals! Why didn't he think of it earlier? Miss Vowel, he said, and he jabbed his hand in the air. What now, Aidan? She replied with a sigh. Please can I help you look after your animals, Aidan asked. The whole class saw Miss Vowel's face change. All of a sudden she looked softer around the edges. Why would you want to do that? She asked. She sounded softer too. I just really like animals, Aidan lied, as he tried not to think about the smell. I mean, I love them. I love animals to bits. Aidan ignored his classmates' laughter. He focused on the warm smile that was spreading across Miss Vowel's face. You do? She replied, and her eyes flashed. And just like that, Aidan Abet found himself a guardian to replace Mr. Goodacre. Chapter 4, The Zookeeper. For the next few days, Aidan spent every one of his lunchtimes looking after Miss Vowel's animals. He hated every minute of it. It wasn't as if he had better things to do or had loads of friends to hang out with, but all those animals made his skin crawl. All that fur, all those scales, and they went chirp, chirrup, sss, whenever he came near. Aidan felt like a zookeeper. He was always tidying cages, filling water bowls, or cleaning up poo. But Miss Vowel was happy to have anyone who cared about her precious animals as much as she did. She treated Aidan differently from the moment he became her animal's babysitter. You're a good boy, Aidan, Miss Vowel would say to him. The more care that Aidan showed to the animals, the more Miss Vowel seemed to like him. She even kept her eye on the unrelated Robinsons. On more than one occasion, she stopped the boys mid-song or chased them away from the classroom as they closed in on Aidan. So every lunchtime, Aidan stayed in the classroom and looked after the animals. Nothing could make him like them, but after a while, the smell of them made him feel safe. It was a Tuesday lunchtime, and Aidan was busy filling the water feeders for the rabbit, hamsters and gerbils. As he kept an eye out for the unrelated Robinsons, he spotted the snake in its cage. It was pressed against one of the glass walls, but not in its usual squirming coils. The shape of the snake formed a perfect V. Huh? Aidan muttered. He edged closer. The snake didn't move, but it seemed to press itself harder against the glass. Aidan didn't know anything about snakes. Was this something they did? Did they make shapes? Could they make letters? Aidan shook his head and shrugged it off. He checked on the other animals to make sure they all had food and water. He paused again at the snail's clear tank. The snails were idle and disgusting as ever, with their glistening slime trails covering the mossy floor of their tank. For now they were still, except for the twitch of the long stalks above their eyes. But again, something odd caught Aidan's eye. There was a slime trail along the wall of the tank, and when the light caught it just so, the trail looked like a human being. It was a perfect human shape, with arms and legs and a head, and it was drawn by a snail with the slime from its single foot. No way, Aidan muttered. He stepped back. What? He glanced around to check if someone was playing a trick on him, but there was no one in the classroom. There was no one staring in at him from outside. There were just the animals in their cages staring at him. The gerbils stared, the hamsters stared, the rabbit stared. Then the rabbit flicked its head back, again and again, like it was telling him to come closer. Aidan looked around again, and then he took a step forward, and another, until he was standing over the hutch. The rabbit edged into a corner, and Aidan peered inside. The floor of the hutch was full of droppings. Tiny black pellets peppered the sawdust-covered floor. I just cleaned you, stupid thing, Aidan sighed. He glared at the rabbit in frustration. Then he did a double take. The rabbit's droppings had been arranged to spell out a word. That word